Omar Portee, better known in the streets as OG Mack, was born in the Bronx in 1972. His early years were shaped by instability, exposure to neighborhood violence, and an environment where survival often required affiliation, reputation, and influence. By his teenage years, Portee was already cycling in and out of juvenile facilities and later adult prisons, where his reputation began to grow. Birth of the United Blood Nation, 1993. In the early 1990s, New York State prisons were heavily influenced by established groups such as the Latin Kings and Natas. Black inmates in some facilities felt outnumbered and unorganized. During Portee's incarceration at Rikers Island in 1993, he and Leonard "Deadeye" Mackenzie organized what would become the United Blood Nation, UBN. Modeled loosely after, but independent from the California Bloods, UBN wasn't formed as a traditional street gang at first. It began as a prison alliance for protection and mutual support. But by the mid-1990s, that alliance evolved into a structured organization with sets, ranks, meetings, and codes. Expansion to the streets. Upon release in June of 1999, OG Mack worked to bring the UBN structure from Rikers Island into New York neighborhoods, particularly Harlem and the Bronx. The mid to late 1990s saw the rapid spread of blood-affiliated sets throughout NYC, partially fueled by charismatic leadership and strong identity building, recruitment of youth, seeking belonging, influence of prison culture on the streets, fragmentation of older neighborhood gangs. By the early 2000s, UBN-affiliated sets had become one of the most dominant gang identities in New York. Organizational identity structure. Under Portee's early vision, the UBN used a rank structure for superior officiers, captains, and lieutenants, then to generals 5-star down to 1-star, codes of conduct and disciplinary rules, hand signs, symbols, and identifiers, a mix of ideology and survival-based loyalty. While the original narrative included themes of unity and uplift, the organization on the ground became linked to violence, territorial disputes, armed robbery, drug distribution, extortion, and intergang conflicts. Arrest, prosecution, and sentencing, 2001-2002. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, federal and local law enforcement targeted the leadership of UBN under conspiracy and RICO statutes. In 2002, Omar Portee was convicted on racketeering, conspiracy, drug trafficking-related charges, ordering violent acts linked to gang operations. He received a 50-year federal sentence, which he is currently serving. His incarceration led to ongoing fragmentation within the UBN, with sets becoming more independent and less centrally controlled. Legacy and impact. OG Mack remains a controversial figure, seen by some as a symbol of survival and resistance in the face of institutional pressures, and by others as a central architect of one of New York's most violent gang eras. Key elements of his legacy include shaping NYC's modern gang landscape, impact on prison culture, creation of one of the largest black gang networks on the East Coast, long-term legal and community consequences. Regardless of perspective, his story reflects the broader social dynamics of New York's 1990s, mass incarceration, community disinvestment, racialized prison power structures, and the emergence of new forms of organized street identity. The Don Taylor case. Back in the fall of 1987, Portee was facing multiple charges in New York that could have led to substantial prison time. Instead, as part of a cooperation agreement which included his testimony in People v. Taylor, Portee was allowed to plead to 2 to 6 years for all charged crimes, received credit for 21 months' time served, and was promised a favorable letter to the parole board. In addition, Maryland authorities agreed to withdraw their pending extradition request for Portee. By contrast, in connection with his recantation, there was no showing that Portee was promised or received any benefit. Defendant's argument that Portee wanted to clear himself of having been regarded as a snitch because of his original testimony against Taylor is unpersuasive. The defendant also contends that the recantation came without risk inasmuch as the statute of limitations for perjury has run. Portee identified Don Taylor as the shooter at a police precinct lineup and from the witness stand at Taylor's criminal trial. Years later, in 1998, following the discovery via a Freedom of Information Law (FOIL) request of Detective Morris Schweiber's notes on the case, counsel for Taylor interviewed Portee, who was then incarcerated at Clinton Correctional Facility. Apparently, there were 2 interviews, and in 1999, Portee gave a sworn statement that he had testified falsely against claimant. This led to a follow-up by the Bronx District Attorney's Office, which was delayed for a considerable period of time because Portee's lawyer denied access to his client until a federal case against him was concluded. On January 7, 2004, Assistant District Attorney, ADA, Jeremy Shockett, interviewed Portee in a federal detention facility in Florida. Shockett testified that Portee told him that Don Taylor was not involved in Joyner's shooting. Portee was thereafter deposed on June 5, 2007 at the federal prison in Florence, Colorado, and his testimony, in which he denied witnessing the murder and having any knowledge of claimant's involvement, was read into evidence at trial. Don Taylor's conviction was eventually overturned, and he sued the city of New York for $22 million. So what do you think? Did OG Mack redeem himself, or was it too late? Let us know in the comment section.